Hey there, Daniel from GrowYourMusicStudio.com, and in this video I'm answering another question that has come in to me from the Facebook page about group lessons. Today's question comes from Alyssa, and I'm actually going to read it verbatim. Alyssa asks, if you were starting from scratch, would you start with one-on-one lessons and convert to group once you have the clientele? Or would you start with groups right away? And if you would, what if you don't have enough kids to fill a group at the beginning? Thank you. So I'm just going to jump right into the answer here. I've got a couple observations to make. First, I want to start with the quote-unquote bad news. I want to start with a candid exploration of why it might be challenging to start with a group. Now, if I truly thought it was a bad idea, I'd probably just come out and say that. Here's the spoiler. I actually think it would be great to start with a group format. If you can start at the beginning with a group format, I would highly recommend that you do so. And in fact, there have been people who've gone through my Successful Group Lessons training program that are just starting out. They're literally just out of college and they've gotten started the right way. The youngest studio owner to date that has taken the SGL program was actually 18. She was in the process of going through, and she considered this to be part of her education along with the degree she was pursuing. So I think it's a great way to start out. So that's the spoiler. But let's have a candid discussion of some of the things that will be a little more challenging if you start this way, because I want to give a balanced view. So the first thing, you have no proof at the beginning. Now, something that I've made very, very clear in the many videos that I've done over the years is that effective marketing builds trust. And one of the best ways to build trust is to actually show that you're trustworthy. And what I mean by that is have case studies, have testimonials from current clients. Better yet, have photos, have videos from recitals, from in-studio performances, maybe videos that students took at home and they've emailed them to you, and you go ahead and post those candid videos to your studio Facebook page or Instagram account. Okay? These kinds of trust markers really can grease the wheels and really help parents make a decision to join your studio. The point is this: when you're starting out, you don't have those trust markers. And you're starting out in a format that historically has a bad reputation because there are so many poor group curriculums out there, or there's so many poor group programs out there. And for parents who've already been through one, once bitten, twice shy, and then even parents who've never had musical instruction before, perhaps they have a memory of what lessons were like as a kid, and then they come to you and you say, oh yeah, we're gonna do a group program, which, by the way, that is exactly the way that I recommend that you do it. But they come to you and they hear, okay, we're gonna be doing a group program. Perhaps they have a suspicion simply because they had this idea in their head of what piano lessons were supposed to be like, or what guitar lessons were supposed to be like. So that is a challenge if you start directly with group lessons. It is a little bit more of an uphill climb. Now, you were gonna have that either way, because once again, this is really true because you're just starting out. What I'm saying is it might be slightly more challenging simply because you're starting out and you're doing a group program simultaneously. So that's the first thought. Second thought is you have equipment considerations, and I'll be brief on this one. But when you're starting out as a studio teacher that's teaching one-on-one, whether you're doing strings lessons, drum lessons, piano lessons, guitar lessons, any of these things that can really be done well in groups the way that I teach them, the way that I teach studio owners to do groups, if you're starting out that way, you really only need one instrument. But if you're starting with groups, you're gonna need more instruments, and it might not be the same kind of instrument, so there's research involved there. Obviously, you're making a bigger investment, so hopefully, you're gonna take that investment a little more seriously, looking into things like warranties. I'll tell you that early on, I purchased a certain kind of piano from a certain company that I won't name here, but I would not work with them again. And I had a few of them break within the first year or two, and the warranty process was such a hassle. And I wish at the time I'd known of, places like Sweetwater. At the time, Amazon wasn't really known for selling musical equipment the way they are now. Amazon is fantastic to deal with in terms of customer service. Sweetwater is legendary in their customer service. I did not go with a company like that, unfortunately, in the beginning. Now, for people who are doing it now, 11 years after I did this, you really have a huge benefit. But even then, there is still a process of getting that equipment, setting that equipment up, getting it into your space, and really just becoming familiar with that. And again, most teachers didn't come out of a group environment either, so they don't really have a model to work on. So again, this is a little bit of a challenge. There's a little bit of a hurdle to overcome there at the beginning with the equipment, learning how to use that, learning how to logistically run the hour with a group. So it's, again, just being candid here. And that really leads me to the third thing, the third challenge I would say that is slightly heightened if you decide to start in a group format, and that is you're teaching in a classroom situation. When you're working one-on-one with a child, there's simply the idea of rapport building and understanding how to draw that child out, understanding how to relate to the child or the student if you're working with adult students. When you're working in a classroom situation, not only do you have to build that rapport with the student, but you also have that group dynamic that you have to keep control of. And I remember as a classroom teacher early on, teaching a 60-member fourth grade choir. I worked at my student teaching was done at a very, very large private school. And the very first week, I let a few mischievous boys slide, and things got a little dicey, things got a little out of control, and I showed up the next week ready to meet that level of energy. But because I had not reined them in that first week, the second week, they came in with a much higher level of mischievous energy than I was expecting. And so the second week went poorly. So third week, I came in, okay, I'm gonna be ready for that. They were even worse that third week. And I really had to bring the hammer down that third week. And the advising teacher was there, of course, to kind of walk me through this, let me know what was going on, help me correct my mistake. I still remember to this day, this is going on, 15, 16, 17 years ago now. And it's still, in my mind, I can still see those kids' faces. And it really just impressed upon me how much more challenging it was to teach in a classroom situation. Now, you're not gonna be working with 60 kids. You're gonna be working with 4, 5, maybe 6 in your average group environment. But what I will tell you is that there is a different skill that needs to be brought to bear. Now, let's talk about that skill, because that's where the benefits of starting out with a group come in. So despite these challenges, here is the number one reason why I'd recommend starting out in group. It is simply this. The toughest people that you will ever have to convince or convert are current clients. And if you don't have current clients, then that means you will never have to go through the pain that the 150 plus studio owners that have gone through the SGL program have gone through. Insofar as they currently had students. There have been people that have come through that have never had a studio before, but 99% already have a studio. And what they discovered was it was far more of a challenge to convert current clients than it was to convert someone who was coming in after the fact, after they had already converted. This is just the nature of the beast. So if you have the opportunity to start in this way, what that means is you will never have to go through that process. And that alone is worth those challenges that I just mentioned. I don't think those challenges compare to the benefits that you get by starting out in that way. And then here's the other reason why. And it might sound like I'm coming out of left field for this, but it's simply this reason. Compound interest. Albert Einstein said compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world. It's the most powerful force in the universe. The idea being that when you start investing, the earlier you start, the more you end up with at the end. The closer to the beginning of your career that you can start this, the benefits over time accrue to you in faster and in exponentially greater measure. Now, don't let this dissuade you. I actually already have had people sign up for the training even this month that are 60 plus years old, and they want to end their career strong. And this is what they've said to me. Hey, I probably have 5 years, maybe 7 years left that I'm going to teach. Do you think it's too late for me? Can I learn this? Can I do this? And what I would say is, of course you can. I've had other studio owners do it before. But if you can get started in this way, the long-term benefit to you is just enormous. And I started in my 4th year, about 4.5 years in. And what it did for me was made me a stronger teacher. It exposed flaws in my teaching style earlier because I was being put through the ringer, because this is by nature a tougher format to teach in. It prevented me from having this long reputation of being a certain type of teacher and then switching over midstream, mid-career to a different type of teaching. It allowed, since I began when my studio was relatively small compared to what it is now, there's a certain momentum that came because so many parents never experienced that one-on-one teaching with me. So when they referred people to me, they spoke very positively of the group program that I'd created because they never knew anything different. So these are many of the reasons why it's so good to start this way. And I'm glad that I started as early as I did. And I honestly think that if someone has the choice to start now or 5 years from now, they really should start now. And I don't care if you're 1 year in, I don't care if you're a decade in, I don't care if you're 30 years in. Better to start today than it is to start later. And of course, I've given many reasons why I think group teaching, group lesson teaching for many different instruments is a far better way to start a beginner. I'm not going to rehash those reasons here, but basically what I've seen in my studio is students moving much faster than they did when they were working with me one-to-one, simply because of the way that I'm teaching, because they have more time with me, because in the group environment, I have a greater opportunity to teach them how to be independent learners. And of course, the 6 principles of group success that are kind of my unofficial rules for how I teach, those certainly obviously have been a real big help to me in getting those results with kids. And that really leads me to the final question that she asked. She said, what if you don't have enough kids to fill a group in the beginning? And that's where I want to kind of end. Because this is true whether or not you have 0 or you have 100 kids in your studio, you're starting with 0 group students. So how do you fill that? Now, obviously, if you have 100 students, you have a large pool from which to market internally to. But there have been teachers that have worked with me that haven't wanted a mass rollout. There was a teacher that I worked with on the West Coast of the United States where she wanted to start with 1 group. She wanted to figure out who in her studio would be a good candidate for that because she wanted to feel comfortable with the format. She wanted to feel comfortable with teaching it, and she also wanted to make sure that she wasn't ripping off her students, so to speak. She wanted to make sure that she was satisfied with the quality of the group lessons before she rolled it out en masse. And so she just rolled it out to a few people at a time, and that's really the answer there. If you have 3 people, you can start. You don't have to have this large studio already. You don't have to have this grand plan. You don't have to have people beating down your door or ringing your phone off the hook to get a group program started. What you need is 3 people. That reminds me of a teacher I worked with in the summer of 2018. She wanted to start an adult group program. And we worked together on her marketing. We worked together on her group curriculum. And she had 0 people because she was somewhat new to the area and she was starting a studio from scratch. And we worked on her marketing, we worked on her group curriculum, and we rolled it out so that her marketing preceded the official beginning of the group program. Her marketing began in July, and everyone who contacted her during that time, she said, hey, the program starts in September. This is brand new. It's very exciting. There's nothing like it in our area. So can you wait till September? Almost everyone said yes. She had a number of people contact her, and she kept all their contact information. She kept following up with them. And then when it was time to roll it out, she got their availability. She put the time slots in the calendar, and she started with very strong numbers because of that 2-month rollout. And that's kind of what I recommend, especially if you're starting from scratch. So Alyssa, I hope this answer was helpful. For those of you who are watching, whether or not you have a group program already, whether or not you have a studio already, if you have questions, just leave those in the comments below. If this video was helpful, just hit that like button. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.